How do you go from an intermediate level to an advanced level when you're learning a foreign language? This is a question I got the other day, and the answer is pretty simple. You just have to continue doing what you've been doing and what's worked so far, but more. So basically, language learning is quite simple. Basically, you need to learn three things, right? You need to learn a lot of words and sentences that you're going to actually use, useful words and sentences. You need to do a lot of listening because you can't understand a language if you don't do a lot of listening practice. And of course, you need to do a lot of speaking practice. And this is where most people struggle because they don't do it right. And this is what you need to do from the very beginning. This is something you should do from day one, right? But if you're at an intermediate level already and you want to get to an advanced level, this is also what you need to do. There's nothing that you should stop doing, or there's nothing new really that you should be doing. You simply have to change the materials and change the style a little bit. Just do it with more and more complex sentences and more complex materials, right? Basically, you do more of the same, but more of it and in a more difficult way. So basically, you've got all the sentences that you've been learning, the frequency lists, all the vocabulary sentences, the example sentences of verbs, adjectives, most common nouns, all of that. If you've been learning all of that, just keep doing it, keep reviewing it. Your language islands, all the sentences you've been trying to learn for conversations, for all the different topics you talk about, for all the interactions you usually have, all of that. You keep learning those and practicing those. And then you keep listening to the language a lot. You should probably read in the language as well if you want to reach C1 level. And you should do a lot of speaking. Now, the way this changes is it's not that complicated once you know what to do. So basically, what you need to do is if you've done all the previous things that you need to do to get to a conversationally fluent level or even fluent level, you don't need to be a C1 level to be fluent, by the way. And you understand the language pretty well and you can have conversations, but you want to get to a higher level, right? So what you need to do is you take your language islands, the ones you've already written, and you rewrite them using AI, and you specifically give AI the prompt that it should rewrite these sentences in a C1, C2 level. And AI will rewrite your sentences. You already know those sentences. Now they will look a little bit different, more complicated, longer sentences, more complex grammar structures, fancier vocab, all of that. Then you simply do the same exact things. You follow the same process that you did with the earlier language islands. So you learn to say exactly the same, but in a more complex, fancier way, right? That's thing number one that you need to do. You should also listen to a lot more authentic content, podcasts, YouTube channels, audiobooks are good as well. All that good stuff. Watch more shows. This is the kind of stuff that won't make you fluent in a language. You shouldn't do much of this in the beginning. When you start learning a foreign language, you should first focus on listening to your language island sentences, the sentences you want to be able to say, and listen to them over and over again on repeat until you know them really well and you can say them. And that's going to do way more for your speaking skills and for your comprehension as well, because repetition is the best way to learn, right? And if you listen to the same 1,000 sentences or 2,000 or 3,000 sentences on repeat for 100 hours, your comprehension will improve much more as well than if you listen to random stuff all the time for the same 100 hours. Because obviously, the second time you listen to the exact same list, it'll be much easier to understand, and the third time it'll be even easier. So a lot of repetition in the beginning. You should continue with repetition, a lot of repetition with your new language islands now, in order to get to a higher level, to a C1 level. But you should also incorporate a lot of introduce a lot of authentic content and try to use more advanced materials. Try not to use really. There's a lot of really trashy content these days online, and a lot of podcasts, a lot of YouTube channels that are honestly like really stupid content. If that's your thing, go for it. But I recommend you listen to or you watch things that are a little bit more, let's say they're for literate people. So it's for triple digit IQs. So that will make you sound better when you speak. It will expand your vocabulary much more. You'll just sound educated if you listen to that stuff instead. But again, combined with your language islands, you should still listen to your language islands, just in a modified, listen to a modified C1 version of them. Then you should also speak a lot. And speaking to native speakers, the more of that you do, the better, obviously. But it's not the only way, and it's not the best way to get to a higher level, because once you're able to communicate effectively, native speakers will, for the most part, stop correcting you, unless you're talking to unless you've got a tutor and you talk to him or her the whole time, and they're constantly correcting your mistakes. Talking to people will eventually stop. You will stop improving that much after a while, relatively early on, by the way, once you can communicate effectively, because you won't get feedback and you will stop noticing your mistakes, because people just don't, they understand you even if what you said is wrong. So, and also you will mostly talk about the same things over and over again. So what I recommend you do instead is you take your language islands and you listen to them over and over, and you expand your language islands massively. You should add more and more sentences to your language islands. And the best way to do this is doing two different kinds of exercises: speaking and writing on your own. Speaking is very simple. You take your phone and you pretend to send voice messages. Actually, I send voice messages to myself when I do this, but you can record yourself speaking as well if you want. And you try to talk for a minute, 2 minutes. You should be able to speak for 5 minutes if you're at an intermediate level already, and you talk about whatever, anything and everything every day. You can do this, and you should do this for hours, right? You go for a walk and you send 20, 30, 50 voice messages to yourself about whatever, like your thoughts, what you did yesterday, your plans, things you have to do, to-do lists. You pretend to have a conversation, anything. You could also pretend to have a conversation. You should have an actual conversation with ChatGPT, but I don't really recommend doing that, because it's you're not recording the things you're saying, and this will be important later. And ChatGPT will just give you the same answers over and over again. So it very quickly ends up being like a circular conversation where there's nothing really going on there. It's much better to just like talk about whatever comes to your mind now freely. Just run your mouth. And when you get home, you'll listen to all of this and you write it all down while you're listening to it in your language. And then you translate all those sentences and you add them to your language islands, and you listen to them, you repeat them aloud. You do the whole process again. And tomorrow you try again, speaking to yourself, then you write those sentences as well, and you keep doing this. Add more sentences, learn them through repetition, try speaking to yourself, use those audio files to then add more sentences to your language islands, and you keep doing this over and over again until you've got tens of thousands of sentences in your language islands that you've listened to and repeated many times, and you're able to use them all easily in conversation. And also, you will have hundreds of hours of speaking practice time if you do this. Also, really important, if you care about speaking with the least amount of mistakes possible, writing. This is something that's very easy to do these days. You can use AI to correct your writing. You can set a timer, 5 minutes or 2 minutes, or I mean, if you do shorter sessions, more sessions that are shorter, it's probably much better. It works much better for me, at least. So you set a timer and you try to write as much as possible about whatever, and you try to write it correctly, obviously. And then you use DeepL or ChatGPT or whatever to correct your writing. And then those sentences, you also add them to your language islands and you learn them. Create audio files, shadow them, repeat the whole process. And you simply have to keep doing this. Like I said in the beginning, it's doing more of the same thing. Yeah, just with more sentences, with a much bigger list of sentences, and with more advanced sentences. And thankfully, we've got AI, so you can use it to do this on your own. All right. So keep basically speak to yourself a lot, record everything, write a lot, and then both what you get from both activities, all the list of sentences you get from both activities, just add them to your language islands, and then do a lot of listening and shadowing with them. And then go back to writing practice and speaking practice, and you keep doing this until you've got a massive list, and also you've done hundreds of hours of speaking and writing practice. Writing is a really good way to improve your grammar, your spelling. I mean, if you mostly care about speaking, you don't care about spelling that much, but it's a good way to improve your grammar when you speak, to make fewer mistakes when you speak, because writing requires you to stay focused and actually pay attention to the form, right? So lots of speaking, lots of writing, add everything to the language islands, shadowing, listening, try again. And of course, comprehensible input. You read books if you want to, you listen to podcasts, listen to whatever you like to listen to. That's going to be helpful as well. But mostly, if you want to improve your language production skills, your ability to speak the language, do those three things, all right? Lots of speaking to yourself, lots of writing, correct it with AI, and then add everything to your language islands, and then drill those sentences as well. And that's it. Keep doing this, and you will get to a C1 and eventually C2 level as well.